Hello everybody, Mike Collins here. Let's talk a little bit about Edmodo. Let's talk about what it is, why I started using it in class, and why you're probably going to want to use it in your class next year. So to get to the point where you understand why I was using Edmodo, we have to start with a question I asked myself, and I'm sure we've all asked ourselves through the course of our teaching careers, which is how in the world do I support my students outside of the classroom? And really, to support them outside of the classroom beyond the tutoring hours, the way I was going to have to accomplish this by using technology. They're digital natives, they communicate with technology very well, so supporting the class using technology seemed very natural. Now, as a teacher, since I had a ton of extra time, I also wanted to do it by creating a minimal of extra planning, execution, administration time commitment as well. So I asked myself, how do I want to reach my students? How in the world do I want to support them? And then I started with things I already knew how to do. For example, I really wanted to create a system where I could send out homework and assessment alerts, like, hey, don't forget you have this homework assignment due tomorrow, or there's a test next week. And I wanted that to be both for students and parents, and the way I did that is by creating a Twitter account. Twitter's perfect for that. You can send out a quick alert. Anybody who's following you or finds your Twitter page can certainly find that tweet and get that alert, so it was open to everybody. Another thing I wanted to do was to create and post homework and study tutorial videos. This way, when students were working on their assignments, they could reference a explanation by me and watch it over and over again. It worked really great. I started to use Smart Recorder to do that, and it posted everything on YouTube. I send out that link or direct them towards my channel page. Again, they'd have access, and that worked awesome. I wanted to also post some downloadable versions of what I was doing in class, so parents could have access to them. Students who forgot to bring them home had access to them, so they're never kind of left out of the loop. I use Google Sites to accomplish this using Google Docs, because if you ever use those two things together, it's very natural and streamlined, and that was working awesome. And finally, I wanted to create a place where students could ask me questions after school hours, but really ideally to ask each other, so students could post a question, everyone else could respond. So to create this community of learners, I started using a message board. And all four of these things separately worked wonderfully. I had a growing usership, a lot of students were getting on board, creating accounts, being very active, watching these videos, reading my tweets, even tweeting me back questions. But that created a dilemma for me, because I had accomplished in growing this community of learners, but I had completely failed in making the process sustainable for me. It created a whole new job beyond my normal planning of lessons and tutoring, just to make sure I was keeping up with moderating the message board and creating and posting these videos and sending out these tweets, and frankly I fell behind. It got to the point where I could not keep up with everything that was going on because there was so much going on. And if I combine that with the fact that I found out that students in general were very bad at using some of these elements, particularly the message board and the website, that I was doing the wrong thing. Like, I was doing all this work and I was reaching some students, but it wasn't worth all the time that I was putting into it. In a sense, like, certainly it was helping some students, but it was no way I was going to be able to sustain this for a long period of time. So what I really needed was a social network, because the students who were not using the message board well, they grew up in a digital native generation that communicates very well through social networking. I needed a social network that they already knew how to use. Facebook would have been the answer, because it does combine all the elements of being like a microblog built in with an alert site, and ability to post links to certain things in a very user-friendly and familiar way was what I really needed to use. Now, that created a whole new dilemma for me, because if you've ever asked anybody what the official CPS policy on Facebook use in the classroom is, you'll find out that there really isn't one, or at least not one in writing. I asked a question to one person, they asked the person at top of them, and they asked the person ahead of them, and pretty soon it came back that the official answer to my question was you could use Facebook if you wanted to, but it's not officially supported by CPS. Now, if you combine that with any kind of news story you've heard in the past about how teachers have gotten into trouble by using Facebook and being friends with students, that creates a situation that you don't necessarily want to jump into. So then what am I going to do? I have these four elements that I have separately that are working okay but not great. Students aren't really using them well, and there's so many different accounts to create that it's starting to get confusing. But I also have Facebook that could cause me some issues. So what is there anything out there, I ask myself, that could give me the positive parts of Facebook without the negative possible consequences of using Facebook if it does start to be used improperly by my students? And it turns out there was an answer to my question. There was something out there that has a positive Facebooks, and by eliminating most of the negatives, And the answer to my question, the thing that killed the Facebook monster for me, was actually Edmodo. And here's some screenshots to give you a sense of what Edmodo even looks like. And it may look familiar to you right off the bat. So that's the PD that I'm offering on the 28th. Just diving into Edmodo and seeing how I'm using it, maybe brainstorming how you could use it next year in your classroom. I'm not claiming to be an expert. I've only been using it for about 7-ish months, but I will show you everything I know how to do, and we will work on anything you want to work on. So if you want to know more, I'll see you on the 28th. Things you might want to download on the old iPad before you begin, or get there, really you can download it on your way down to my room, would be the Edmodo app. Now I'll note that Edmodo, just like Facebook, has a web component and a app parts that you can access. So the Edmodo app is really just a component of the Edmodo.com website. Also, just so you can understand how I'm using Edmodo completely in my classroom, you probably also want to download a recordable whiteboard app. Something like ScreenChop or EduCreations are the two I use. But I also know BContext and Explain Everything are pretty awesome, although you have to pay for them. Also, I use Google Docs as part of my Edmodo experience, so you might want to sign up for a Google account if you want to duplicate what I'm doing. You don't have to, but they're free and they're awesome and give you a ton of stuff, so why wouldn't you want to download a Google account anyway? Anyway, that's what I have to offer. Edmodo on the 28th. If you want to talk more about it, I'll see you there. Thank you.